A major Jays trade is incoming as multiple new reports have dropped, revealing some massive information surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays' plans to acquire one particular starting pitcher. And following yet another brutal start a couple nights ago from Bowden Francis, these new reports have dropped, revealing things are not only picking up, but a trade is incoming. We're going to break down those reports and discuss what it means going forward as changes are imminent for the Toronto Blue Jays team. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. You guys have been absolute beasts with the support, so thank you guys for that as we were on the road to the big goal of 20,000 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crystal clear now. Now, of course, the Jays are coming off of getting swept by the Philadelphia Phillies. Still a positive road trip. They're in a good spot. But what matters now is not necessarily what happened yesterday with José Berríos, but the day before with Bowden Francis. Trades are on the horizon. Moves are going to need to be made here very soon. And as the trade deadline inches closer and closer, we're starting to get some clarity surrounding the Jays' next move. And let's start with this report from Jim Bowden. The Blue Jays have made acquiring a starting pitcher their priority at this trade deadline. They match up well with the Diamondback for Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly, who would cover both. But if Arizona decides to sell, or perhaps with the Angels for Tyler Anderson, and we're going to be zeroing in on Tyler Anderson today. But a big, Jays trade update in general. They are locking in on a starting pitcher, and of course, we'll have multiple videos. But I want to cover Tyler Anderson because there's been a bunch of different rumors, and even dating back a couple of years. In general, the Jays have been linked to the lefty for a while. I believe even Jeff Passan on Sportsnet 590 came out a few weeks ago and kind of talked about, mentioned Tyler Anderson's name. It may have been in the offseason. Regardless of what it was, he has been linked to the Jays for a while. But he is a perfect fit. And for a team now like the Angels who are going to be sellers, for him to get linked by Jim Bowden is huge. You can see this here. Of course, you can see the exact quote. So the Athletics, Jim Bowden linked the LA's all-star starting pitcher to the Toronto Blue Jays. A bit of an interesting all-star appearance. We'll get into it in a minute. The Jays have made acquiring a starting pitcher the deadline. Again, same. I just got it from the exact article here, but there's also this from Sports Illustrated. Bowden believes the Angels will be sellers at the deadline, and now Anderson is 35 years old, and he would be a rental, which fits out fairly well here. He is a two-time all-star with the Angels and the Dodgers, and has stood out again in 2025 for his performances. Anderson has a 3.99 ERA through 13 starts and 70 innings pitched, a low strikeout percentage, only fanning 18.6%. So this is a very good deal for a few different reasons. And why is the perfect target? One, he is a very, very respectable pitcher. Just a very solid guy. Is he going to be an ace? And I had a video on Mitch Keller there a week or two ago. He's not going to be an ace on the staff, but he's been there for a while. And for a team right now that needs some stability in their starting rotation, Tyler Anderson would be that guy. B, he is a rental. So the Toronto Blue Jays will be able to go out and get him for a lot cheaper than they will some of the other starting pitchers, especially guys like, Mitch Keller, who, I'd maybe even prefer, Tyler Anderson, given the amount you actually have to give up. He's allowed the second fewest runs among Angel starters this season and is pitching above league average for the second season running. Now, since this article, a couple days ago, his last start, he wasn't great. But there's just been a lot of, reports linking him. Now, let's dive into his stats a little bit here. Now, you might look at it and not, he's very up and down. And again, this would be a very cheap acquisition cost, we would assume. Like, is it going to be an Aurelvis Martinez? No. It will be one of their other prospects, we would assume. But again, you can see this here. Now, this season is a 4.44 ERA. But again, that was skewed a lot by his last start. Prior to that, at 3.99 ERA. The peripherals are solid. He's 35. He's on the older side. But again, we have to keep in mind, folks, for a team that desperately needs a starting pitcher who's been around for a while to give them quality innings, I have faith in this offense, especially once they get some guys back, to be able to produce at a very solid level. The problem is right now, they are using up their bullpen a ton by not having, a fifth starter, but also B, Bowden Francis in the lineup. Anyone to replace Bowden Francis at this point. And I really don't think that, he would cost a lot. I genuinely don't believe Tyler Anderson would cost a lot. Would a guy like, maybe Alan Rodin, something like that. And I obviously have, a lot of people are going to say, is it worth trading Alan Rodin for him? Let me know down below. Alan Rodin's the 5th ranked prospect in the Jays system. Like, that would seem like a bit of an overpay. But again, we also know that starting pitchers go for a lot in general, just at the trade deadline, because there's not that many available. And you can see here in another article, Tyler Anderson was linked as a surprise Jays candidate. Toronto is without a southpaw against lefty in the starting rotation, and they could use the services, and he will likely be dealt from the Angels. You can see this here. Again, this article was dropped even, a couple days before, back on June 2nd. So 2 weeks ago. Look at his ERA then. You can see at the bottom, he had a 3.39 ERA, so he hasn't been great as of late, which means A, you can probably get him for pretty, a reasonable amount, and B, of course, you're going to be able to, he's a very solid pitcher nonetheless. Now, I want to ask you guys this, however, you guys and girls, would you be open to giving up a guy like maybe even, a Davis Schneider, and Alan Roden, somebody like that, although, Schneider and Roden are kind of on different spectrums, but they have an abundance of, starting. Some teams have an abundance starting pitcher, of course, but the Jays have an abundance of position players that are, fringe guys, AAA guys who can probably make an impact on a big league team, but the Jays don't have room for them. I think that would be where the Jays are able to kind of just, funnel out some of their guys. And I think a David Schneider could make sense. Alan Roden's probably overpaying a little bit, but there is a chance where like the Jays don't see a future for him with the team, given all the things they have, and they go ahead and they ship off. Like, would you do a deal centered around David Schneider and then another prospect for a guy like Tyler Anderson? Like, I feel like you would. David Schneider doesn't have a ton of value right now, but again, the question is what this market is going to shape up to be like, because we know, again, the Jays' number one priority is a starting pitcher, Max Scherzer. He's going to be inching closer to a return regardless. Whether Scherzer comes back, whether Alek Manoah comes back, Scherzer's next start is going to be on Wednesday. You need to be able to, unfortunately, pay up and get a starting pitcher, because you cannot continue to throw out Bowden Francis and Eric Lauer, even though he's been fantastic, but whoever else you want to throw there in the fifth starting spot and expect positive results and for this to be a playoff team. Like, they have 3 starters right now, 3 that are actually reasonable. And Tyler Anderson would provide some stability to the lineup. And I know some of you, let me know down below what your thoughts are. You might not prefer this, idea, and might rather, get someone who's higher end. This would be more of a kind of a band-aid move, and I think that that's fine. Like, he has the capabilities, a 2-time All-Star, to be a very good pitcher on the tail end of his career, of course. But even last year, 2024, like, just a really, really good year, almost 200 innings pitched, similar to Chris Bassett in the way that, he doesn't strike out a ton, but he has very good command, and he doesn't get hit super hard, but sometimes he will. So it's like, it's interesting. I like the deal a lot. Of course, the acquisition cost is always going to be the biggest thing here. And you look at their starting pitchers. You have Eric Lauer penciled as the third and Bowden Francis the fifth. They're going to keep running out Bowden Francis there until they get a better option. But man, oh man, having 3 starting pitchers on a team that is in their, in theory, in their prime window right now to win, it makes you look at the bullpen. And we saw in yesterday's game, Eric Swanson. What's his future looking like in Toronto? They'll probably keep him around, but he's been very, 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 very terrible, very bad. Chad Green hasn't been very good. A lot of these guys, Yaro Rodriguez, been fantastic. Like, you do have some really good stories as well. The Jays need a starting pitcher, and the longer they go without it, it's similar to 2021 with the bullpen. They had a horrible bullpen the whole year. The offense starting pitching was great to solid. They waited so long until the trade deadline to get a bullpen arm that it cost them. They missed out in the playoffs by 1 game. The longer you wait, like, yes, there are reinforcements on the way. You're going to get Alek Manoah hopefully back. How much can you really rely on him for this year? Max Scherzer, how much does he have in the tank? Make a move, make a trade for a guy like Tyler Anderson, and go from there. And the Jays have been linked to him once again. So let me know down below what your thoughts are. It's an interesting time. Like, the problem is, right, they're so early till there's still a couple weeks until, things are really going to start picking up, we would assume. But even then, you're a month and a half away until the trade deadline. We see moves go down. We saw a blockbuster Rafael Devers trade happen last night. So moves are happening, right? Moves are starting right now. And I said a couple weeks till things pick up. Things started right now with the Rafael Devers trade last night. That's crazy for the Toronto Blue Jays as well, and obviously impacts the market. But start making moves now. Don't wait. You just got swept by the Phillies. I want to see a trade happen ASAP. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. Would you do a deal centered, around and for Tyler Anderson? I'm very curious. Cheers.